State of Affairs is joined by Assemblyman John Burzichelli, who's the Deputy Speaker of the House. Good to see you, Assemblyman.
Happy to be here.
All the way up from South Jersey, we greatly appreciate it. You have been a leader for almost 7 years in this legislation called the Aid in Dying for the Terminally Ill. As we tape this program on April 9th, there's a good chance by the time this airs, this will be a law that the governors may sign.
Hopefully.
What will it do?
Well, it'll give people who are terminally ill with a dual diagnosis of 6 months or less to live the option of requesting from their physician a prescription that they can fill that will allow them to conclude their life when they choose to, because it has to be self-administered.
You know, we had Assemblywoman Nancy Munoz who voted against it here, a nurse who said, you know what? There are people who can't administer it because they have dementia, they're sick, they have so then what?
Well, there are limitations, because in this approach, a person has to be of sound mind at the time they request a prescription and has to be able to self-administer the pharmaceutical. The idea is self-determination and control. So this is not Dr. Kevorkian. Someone doesn't show up and inject you with something. This is your decision, and that's how it's structured.
You talked to us about my colleague at WNET, Raphael P Berman. You joined us many times and talked about this. This is a fight you've been involved in. I've always been curious. 7 years, why so committed? Is this personal?
No, actually, it bubbled up through staff. I took an interest in it after researching, and it's just become I always thought it was a place the legislature should spend time with, and this kind of issue is not an arm-twisting, political kind of horse trading for votes type thing. So it took a while to bring people along enough to be satisfied. The Assembly passed it 3 times. Finally passed the Senate this time around. And this governor has said he's going to sign it. The previous governor was not inclined to do so. So it just took time.
Safeguards. There are physicians, some physicians who say, you know what, I'm not going to, because the physician has to, 2 physicians have to sign off?
That's correct.
If a physician says, I don't want to be a part of this, he or she can do that, correct?
That's correct, and as well as any kind of facility. So if you're at a Catholic hospital, it's not a service you're going to be asking for and expecting to get. They're exempted, and there's no liability for not being willing to do it. They're part of the safeguards. This
is a national issue. In fact, New Jersey, when this happens, when and if it happens again, there's a good chance this will be a law by the time this airs, would be the 7th state, 8th state? 8th state, including the District of Columbia. Do you see this as a national movement that will gain steam after this?
It feels like it is, but I don't think this choice will ever be mainstream. Our experience looking at Oregon, which we study very closely, tells us this is not the first choice of people. And in fact, of the around 300 people in 2017 that asked for the prescription in Oregon, less than half of them used it. It seems to be a vehicle of comfort for people, knowing that they have this choice to marry into other palliative care, hospice, the wonderful work all those people do. It just seems, again, that it provides a point of comfort, that you know you're in control of your circumstances.
You know, it's interesting. I was at a conference where a very prominent nun, a woman of faith in my church, the Catholic Church, gave a speech on this. And she said the whole idea of pain is not as relevant, and trying to relieve pain for someone is not as relevant as it was just a few years ago because of technology. And there are very few, if any, people who die in pain, you say?
Well, it simply isn't true. And by the way, I'm raised a Catholic. My aunt is a sister of mercy. So I understand all the discussion back and forth. It's never been my role as a legislator to convince anyone that this should be their choice. My tack here was always, where should the law be? And that was decided by the legislature, that the law should allow this choice for people who want to make it. Those who don't want to make this choice, this law changes nothing for them.
Go back to the pain thing. What makes you convinced that people are dying, significant number of people are dying in pain?
Well, clearly,
with all the technology.
Other than at that moment when a person is slipped into a morphine coma, pain is very real. Testimony was considerable across the state that there are a number of people that find great concern about the pain that they think they will face. If they think that will come, that's part of the equation of why they may want to consider a choice like this. But again, for those who are against this, Steve, nothing changes for them. They're not going to make this choice.
Sure. You know, New Jersey, in the last 30 days of life, New Jersey is the most expensive state in the nation in terms of health care costs, right?
Could be. I mean,
no, it is.
Yeah, well,
it's a fact. Here's what I'm trying to get to.
It didn't factor into our discussions.
It did not.
Did not factor into our discussions.
Because there are some who believe that part of this is the effort to reduce health care costs by having those who are terminally ill not stay alive longer.
The facts
You
don't-
never raised this.
Never raised it, and well, it's been raised by the opposition.
No, not by you, though.
Yeah, the facts don't bear that out. We looked at it very carefully. And in fact, the legislation is very clear that this kind of prescription cannot be put in place of medication.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, Assemblyman.
Please.
By the way, if you're listening on the audio side, John Burzichelli is the Deputy Speaker of the House in the Assembly. For 7 years, he's been fighting for this effort to help people who are terminally ill make that choice. Pick up your point.
My point was that in the legislation, this choice of this prescription cannot be used in place of medication or therapy. The person has to make a choice to ask for this. So an insurance company by law can't say, well, by the way, we're not going to cover that, but we will cover this if you will do this. That would be illegal, and there would be a hefty fine.
Are you confident that the prescription that helps someone pass? The other argument, and again, my job here is to raise the issues of those who are questioning it, is that it may not work.
Well, Steve, I mean, if you're terminally ill and you're in the home stretch and you're greatly weakened, I would say the odds of it working are very high. Would there be circumstances? I guess there could be always outlying circumstances. Again, all the information we have from other states does not tell us that.
Time we have left. Have you gotten pushback from the Catholic Church?
I've had wonderful discussions with the Catholic Church.
Really?
Long discussions with a number of representatives.
Leaders?
Free discussions, which I've welcomed, learned the details of Catholic hospice, and it told me the Catholic Church allows people of our faith to make choices not to eat, to decline medication, even though it will hasten your demise. But this is not something the Catholic Church will advocate for. Nothing will change for them in Catholic teaching. They won't counsel
Or Catholic hospitals?
or Catholic hospitals because they'll be exempted. But they won't counsel to their flock that they should make this choice. Nothing changes for them. This will be for those who want to make this choice. That was the question of where the law should be, and that's been decided.
John Burzichelli, Assemblyman John Burzichelli, all the way from South Jersey. What towns? What community? Paulsboro.
Gloucester County.
Came all the way up to Newark. He's a Deputy Speaker of the Assembly and in very important discussion. Thank you, Assemblyman. Stay right there.
Appreciate it, brother.
That's it for this edition of State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. Let's continue the conversation and follow me on Twitter, please. It's at Steve Adubato. See you next week. Thank you.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by Keystone Mountain Lakes Regional Council of Carpenters, the law firm of Gibbons, P.C., the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, New Jersey Sharing Network, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, Choose New Jersey, Seton Hall University, and by these public-spirited organizations, individuals, and associations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the important issues facing the Garden State, and by Employers Association of New Jersey.